Hi, I'm Brad Buchanan, author of The Scars Aligned, a cancer narrative. It's pretty obvious now that I won't be doing any other readings from this book anytime soon with the pandemic. And since I've committed a lot of the poems in the book to memory, I wanted to record a recitation before I forget them, kind of as a way to pass along, for me, some of the more important words in the book, as a way also to say thank you to the people who bought the book and who made the experience of publishing it, seeing it into the world, a really positive one. Also, for anyone struggling with illness or disability or recovery, maybe some of these words will be helpful. I'll start straight in with a poem called The Differential Diagnoses. The alphabet, once scattered throughout my blood, has metastasized, producing a poem, Cancer and its early equivocations, a subcutaneous haiku sequence, individual nodules linked mainly by their distinctive form, perhaps only the conceit of an overly active imagination, but something in me wants the capital T-cell truth to be spelled out accurately at last, in all its Baroque malignancy. Give me straight talk in off-rhyme or halting measure, or an epigram even, with murderous closure. Cancer man. My younger daughter hails me like a new superhero, with a name that no one in their right mind would want. She mocks me for my newfound power of disappearance. My alter ego no longer a secret. My compromised bone marrow, soon to be replaced with a chemical stronger than anything she can imagine. My skeleton laced with a negative force field. My muscles long hidden, at last revealed. My flabby normalcy stripped away as though struck by lightning or bitten by a mutant animal. She laughs at me, the little villain, afraid to admit that we're all only human. Vagal. Refuse the suggested autocorrect to fatal first of all. Then think of the word as an active verb. To vagal means to fall asleep with stress at the sight of blood or an IV in your arm. It really freaks the nurses out, but does no lasting harm, as long as you don't bang your head too hard against the ground. They'll treat you with renewed respect and maybe atropine, unless, of course, your pulse speeds up to normal on its own, in which case there's a sweet relief, an afterlife, a dream. The vagus nerve is the one you keep whenever you stay calm, until you find that losing it will bring no special shame. Emergency. Coughing up blood rich enough to make the tubercular poets jealous, I sat spitting bright jam in a bucket while my wife ran 3 red lights to bring me here. to the ER just in time for my body to bore the important machine to which it is now attached. Death has been exchanged for an itch in my arm and the fondest wish not to be touched. The death thing. They tried their best to doctor and nurse and medicine me, but I cancered their ass. They familied and friended and neighbored, wived and mothered, fathered and daughtered, chemoed and cathetered. I hospice cared for them like all the rest. They second opinioned and they cephapimed. I only had to mortality once. They colleagued and survival rated. I cemeteried them. In my defense, they never should have experted. Otherwise, I might not have laughed. The false gestation. This cancer is a pregnancy of unknown origin and duration, confinement, labor, and abortion over and over, refractory pattern of mindless cellular reproduction. I piss dead drugs and their victims away like water. Sluice conception and its network of slaughterhouses beget and bugger the decaying energies of a becoming I don't want to understand. I already have all the fatherhood I'd ever need to milk and mourn in this weakened state, or in what lies beyond. A cancer patient's guide to hockey. The blades may make them superhuman, but they are as fallible as surgeons, if slightly more impetuous. When it is their time to perform, their strides sever the IV, dripping patiently into your arm. Their decisions become directions before you could ever process them. Ride their incisions as long as you can. The sheet they scar is cool and clean and comes back refreshed from every infusion, luminous even in sudden death, over time. The neutropenics. They tend to walk after 9 p.m. when they hope to find the hallways empty and to watch themselves in the perfectly darkened windows, neon yellow ghosts taking their medicines out for a stroll, smuggling oxygen under their masks to sip in secret through blood-caked nostrils. You do not need to meet their eye. They will not touch you or even risk any of the more sanguine oaths. So if you would like to, you could unabashedly admire the smoothness of slow footfalls, the unearthly elegance of filmy armor. Ponder at length the garish style they work so diligently to preserve through its single journey, yet come to revile. Perspective. If you only looked out my window or walked the long, straight passageway between University Tower and Davis Tower, you'd never know a city lies around. All you see are other hospital structures, and beyond them, trees. You'd have to go farther than I am supposed to glimpse a freeway, still gleaming like gold at 8 p.m., a rich vein opening up to the mountains. Perhaps an escape I will make again through the huddled, hidden neighborhoods where I don't live like this, alone. In the absence of eyelashes, I accept sincerest wishes for my speedy recovery. With a baleful stare that says I may not survive but refuse to die with the appropriate modesty, pull down the shutters in your own house if you do not wish to see the blue flame of my grave gaze failing. My windows at nightfall will blaze away out of my system. Vincristine, doxorubicin, etoposide. Nurses handled them with visors, gloves, and disposable gowns before they pump my bionic arm full of their pink elixir. And I write their names in the same spirit of self-protection. I want them to get out of my system sooner than possible. I have already taken those syllables much too personally. There is nothing more to do with them except forget, outlive, transcend their brutally effective poetry. I am tired of conjuring with names and nightmares, not of my choosing. Whatever this is a chapter of, be it my life or death, it is quickly closing. Morning, Mr. Sharma. My roommate of 4 days. His soft moans were gentle, lilting songs of pain. Ativan made him Mozartian, but he vomited and could not stand. They gave him methadone at last, when there was nothing else to be done. He spoke through a tumor in his throat and inflammation in his tongue. He had to say things many times before anyone could understand. He tried to speak of his grandchildren and life in Fiji, where he was a sportsman, a bartender, a taxi driver, and a prankster. So said his daughter, who came and sighed and wheeled him home. They gave him less than a year to live. He died last night. I honor him. Assuaging Dr. Sun. Letting Dr. Sun catch me crying was not so much a mistake as it was inevitable. The red eyes and the shiny nose were symptoms that she had to decode on her morning rounds. I answered her questions. Emotional, yes. Suicidal, no. Mainly glad to be alive amid many people whom nothing can save. In fact, moved to tears by the chance to express such pathetic happiness. Chimera, the boy with different colored eyes and other comorbidities like shyness and an indefinable weakness in the knees, at the sight of blood, knows that his innocence is no good, that he must conduct a hostile takeover of his brother's room. He needs to assume the shape of a hybrid, get immunity from the prying eyes of a disease. His incredulous, mirrored face is riddled with zits, doubtful about life up to and including his own. His smile is a painful, orthodontic fiction, a cold sore rubbing against his teeth. His body craves someone else's will to go on eating and sleeping as though all this were normal and worthwhile. A thanksgiving, yes. I will give this thanks to cancer for showing me that something in nature needs me to live out its tragedy more urgently than I could ever live out my own truth in my own time. The proof comes in these autumn colors: orange, gold, yellow, burgundy, that leaves reach when their trees touch winter. Exceptions to the rule of summer, which lie to us about lasting forever. The gift. All my life I have waited for this, without knowing which one would come first. The dangerous suffering that brings meaning to everything else, or the blood-borne generosity of a brother who undoes the death I ought to have accepted by now. Every day, a new gift deepens the craving. There is never enough of love or gratitude. I will take the worst there is to offer. I cannot find an alternative. My brother's keeper, what I shall keep of him, he will not miss, nor will he count it loss. He will come freely to give his life and leave with everything he has still in his possession. He has so much of the precious self I lack and need that he may dispense it gratuitously. But I can't think the less of his essential sacrifice. He must cross into my disgrace and bear its pain. However briefly, the longer anguish may be mine, but so will the miraculous memory. My Byzantium. I try to walk till I forget them all. The drugs, the tubes, the body's bloated soul. Miles Davis eases me to the nearest window with a languid, shimmering solo. A city's infrastructure dully shines. At every step, my feet prepare to slip. A stranger saves my life with wise machines. I see myself reflected, masked and gowned with cap and hairnet, pushing medicines. Awash in robes and fluids, 20 pounds heavier than last weekend. Steaming up my glasses with a sound I keep as quiet as I can. I am a lucky man. I feel that even cancer is my friend. Messna and tacrolimus by my side. 2 stoic Romans coming for a ride, encased in plastic boxes on a pole. They form the standard by which I roll. They flood my heart with noble chemicals. offering protection against fatal rejection. Their blue faces remote and inscrutable. Insistent beeping from another room, transmuted by the front desk intercom into a spreading chime, brings a rushing nurse. Someone nearby is getting even worse, or needs a simple task performed with love, or there's been some mistake. The dormant threat is awake and will not be appeased at this remove. Tomorrow my brother's stem cells will be in. They'll leave his veins in millions, become my skin and mucous membranes, enter my bones, renew the withered marrows, bring me back to an afterlife I never knew was real, a self I left for dead, another type of blood, a different tasting world in which to heal. Pied bloody. The product of combined recessive genes. I hated the blonde hair that came from nowhere, despised my pale face and its spots of brown. Unmerciful to my younger brother, James, whose teeth required an orthodontist's care, whose footsteps followed too closely to my own. I wanted camouflage, a uniform, miraculously fitted, debonair, so I could choose to join or be alone. My brother has caught up, extends his arm. My long-delayed conversion has begun. Icarus from the Breakfast Nook. Light stays aloft, but illuminated objects fall to us to be known. A leaf is briefly sustained on its slow, erratic flight, as if flaming with grace on its way to be damned. So we come to grief, ablaze with amazement, weighed down by the looks of expectant mourners and earthbound mothers, who see in their children dimmed eyes and the distant reflections of suns that desired and died in a life-giving instant, on fire, unaware. A second chance at sunlight. Home, but afraid to step out in the sun for 2 whole days. I now brave the glare, my bald head struck only for a minute by such scalding power that I feel, at last, the redemptive weakness that tells me I will one day heal. The Outpatient's first anniversary. I was reborn a year ago. The painful journey home reminded me how much had died in that eternal room. I found that I had lost the wife who once had called me friend, and in her place a nurse for life that stopped but would not end. My children, too, were new to me, unfathered for so long. They cried yellow eyes that blindly flickered, like my gown. The restless ghost who needed breakfast brought to him became a halting weight that strained the stairs 1 half step at a time. I walk unaided now, but there, in corners lurks my cane, in case posterity should bear my likeness once again. The reading. Tonight I will read to you from a book to prove that I have survived all this. More than the usual intimacy of poetry binds us here. This is the moment when the cure becomes official and worthwhile, when all that silence and darkness sees its patience embodied and multiplied. You are its essence and reward. Words imprisoned, despairing, are set free as we speak. Rip the folded pages of my illness open. Let the wounds breathe your trust. You don't know how much you were missed.